Hello and welcome back to Ada Pulse, the community-funded news channel keeping you up to date with all the projects and news in the Cardano ecosystem. Since we are community-funded, there is no coin shilling, no paper motion. We don't even discuss token price. Today we're talking to Alexander, founder of Gucci.io. We discuss NFT lending, NFT liquidity, and much more. I hope you enjoy. Me sort of an introduction on yourself and how you started Gucci and why.
Okay, sure. My name's Alexander Watanabe. I did unsigned algorithms last year when I first encountered NFTs because of Space Buds, and I kind of, had this question like, why would anyone buy a link to a JPEG? And my answer to that was, well, what if it's not just a link to a JPEG? So I put some code on chain that basically made, kind of an image as a result, and that was fun. Over the past year or two in the NFT space, I saw more and more kind of like my optimism turned to kind of pessimism at like what are we actually doing here? And I think where I started to draw the line was when I started to see a lot of these projects wash trading and kind of engaging in explicit manipulation
Yeah.
of their things. And I have some family members who have gotten caught up in multi-level marketing scams like
Hmm.
Amway and this kind of stuff. And I kind of thought like I really don't like these things because they kind of prey on people's hopes and dreams, right? Like I was raised by a single mother, she would always get into these things and it'd be like it's somehow like more amoral to pick on people who don't know better.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
money from like a savvy person, that's one thing. But like these, I saw so many of these like single moms who were just like hopeless. Like they try to like grab onto this stuff. And I think like the most despicable thing you can do is like prey on like the disadvantaged people in a society. And so this really kind of triggered me from
Hmm.
like some deep-seated place. Probably a little bit different, but what I just thought was rather than arguing with people on Twitter about whether this project was legit or not. The real solution was to invent something or make something that would allow there to be incentives for other people to clean up the mess.
Hmm.
And hence Gucci was born. It's like, oh, this exists in the free market. This is called like the ability to short something because, if there's what is shorting really? Shorting, of course, can be abused the same way FOMO and hype can be abused to like drive prices up. But my kind of feeling was that you're essentially calling a bluff when you short something,
Yeah.
right? You're like, you think you're saying that this is worth X, but it's actually worth half of X or 0.25X or even zero. And if you create the way for people to call that bluff, you basically restore balance to the force, right? And
Hmm.
I thought this was the best way to, rather than again engaging on Twitter fights about what's real or what's not. It's just, you know what? Just let people take care, let the market take care of it. We're in crypto. A lot of us probably believe in free market solutions.
It's all
And
about decentralization, isn't it?
yeah, rather than wagging your finger at someone, I think the idea is, our kind of tagline that we came up with was like, put your money where your mouth is. The Gucci is literally used in the Japanese word for mouth.
Okay.
When it's by that character is literally pronounced kuchi when it's by itself, but when it's combined with two other characters, it's entrance and exit in Japanese. So that's that little square logo you see with the two little
Uh-huh.
feet at the bottom. It's just
Okay.
a Japanese kanji
Yeah, I
character.
was wondering where that was coming from.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's just used in if you go to anywhere in East Asia, China, Taiwan, wherever, you'll see this on entrance, like the exit signs, right? Exit
right.
and
Okay.
entrance. And because it's about liquidity, it's about doing this stuff. That's where that all comes from.
Yeah, I'm actually currently in Thailand, so I'll have to keep
Okay,
an eye out when I fly around a bit. Yeah, so
Saudi
much.
Cup.
Sorry. Um, Yeah, let's sort of get into Gucci. Can you give me a sort of a brief explanation, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into the different aspects.
Sure. I mean, at its fundamental, Gucci is a peer-to-peer NFT lending platform, right? That you can essentially lend me one of your NFTs, and I will pay you some kind of interest or yield for the pleasure of doing that. And what this allows you to do is, if you're bullish, you when you're bullish on something, you're saying, I think this is worth more than what the market is pricing it at. If we talk about ADA, right, at 25 cents, most of us probably think ADA is worth a lot more than 25 cents. So we're happy to acquire it at this price. And we think that if we just hold it for some amount of time, truth will prevail and the price of ADA should go up, right?
Yeah.
All that's you. So you buy low and you sell high. Shorting is kind of the same thing. Buy low, sell high. The difference is you swap the order of events. First, you sell high, and then you buy low. But how can you sell something you don't own? Well, it's simple. You borrow it from someone else, you sell it, and then your loan is to give them back more of the things you borrowed, not the dollars or ADA you got from selling the thing you borrowed, right? So if I borrow a pack of trading cards from you, because for whatever reason trading cards are going for $100 right now, I can sell that for $100. I hope that I can buy another pack of trading cards for like $1 in the future. And then if I can, I do that and I pay you back that pack of trading cards. It doesn't matter that I sold it for $100. My obligation to you is to return you a pack of trading cards, not $100. So I sold for $100, I bought for $1, but I did the selling before I did the buying. And that's all really a short is. Some people seem to think like a short is a magic button that makes the price go down. That's not the case, right? You still have, the only difference is you sell before you buy rather than you buy before you sell. And so Gucci is just it's a way to allow people to, if you're an NFT bull, right? Right now, it's kind of funny. Everyone is playing this game, kind of like a real estate investor, where they buy up assets and then they hold them and they hope that they're worth more in the future. But if you think about real estate investors,
yield.
Yeah, they're not generating yield, right? It's just like you buy maybe like a $250,000 flat in the middle of, you're not buying that in the middle of London, but like, let's say it's in the middle of London. You're hoping that, 3 or 5 years from now, you can sell it for $500,000, right? But real estate has this nice property that during the in-between time, you can rent this out. Other people can use this asset, which you're not personally using, and that can actually generate you additional income, right? Which is a great thing. NFTs, if you think about it, are just sitting dormant in your wallet. You can't, for the most part, you can't stake them. If you can stake them, it's usually tied to some kind of like inflationary Ponzi kind of money printer thing, which is kind of nonsense.
Of the time,
And so that's why I hesitate to call this staking. But if you think about it, what Gucci really is, it's kind of like staking for all native assets on Cardano, and it's staking done in a sustainable way, because every engagement on Gucci has a bull and a bear. The bull is lending their NFT to the bear, and the bear is paying the bull for the right to borrow that asset. For a fungible token, it's super easy, right? Like if I borrow 1 million MinSwap, I can pay you back 1 million MinSwap. The one thing that we've done that's kind of innovative is, for an NFT collection, we say you're not borrowing this NFT, you're borrowing a NFT from this policyID. So you shouldn't as a lender put in like a Spacebud bull or a pink dino or something like that, because you can get back an alien in return. I'm just using like a well-known collection as an example, right? So we've basically fungibilized for free the entire NFT collection. And the advantage of this is most NFTs in any given NFT collection are floor pieces, right? By definition, like the most common ones are the floor pieces. The most rare ones are the higher price ones. So maybe like 30 to 50% of the collection are these floor pieces. And that's where most of the liquidity is. And there's other things we could get into about that, but that's basically what we're doing. Is like, if we were all part of the same family member, if I borrow you, I have to return another, like your brother or sister, right? Like I can also return you. That's fine, but it's just like one of you is
Yeah.
the, or one of your family, your surname.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about this. So I think the vast majority of people understand shorting in the concept of fungible tokens. Right. With NFTs, it is slightly different because you have, they're non-fungible tokens. So it's, and you actually, so a lot of projects do have the vast majority stacked at the floor, and then you've got a few, but like there are some projects which actually have a very sort of unequal or like equal spread. So I think that,
Differentiated
yeah.
NFT area.
I think that leads us on to sort of what is a floor price, and sort of how is that done in Gucci?
So it's great. Gucci operates with no oracles. There is no price feed. There is no liquidation. When we started this, I think it was back in February or March. This was before Vassal. There was not really an ability to even have an oracle on Cardano, if you think about it. So
Yeah.
we designed this basically as like a seesaw, where what I like to say is that the user is the oracle. When you come to Gucci, you need to be aware of what is the floor price and what is this asset worth, right? And then you demand, if you're the lender, you set a collateral which protects you, that basically when you lend out your NFT, three things can happen. You can cancel it, right? And you get it back, done. And you pay us 2 ADA because it's just UTXOs and whatever thing. But that's the first thing that can happen. The other two is, if someone borrows that NFT, only two things can happen from that point. Either they return you another NFT and you're happy and you got paid some percentage of the collateral that you set, that you determine what that is, 3%, 5%. So you earn some kind of rebate for the 2 weeks or 4 weeks, however long you said to lend this out for. Or they default on the loan, means they don't return you another NFT. In that case, if by the end of the loan no NFT has come back, the lender has the right to claim the collateral, right? So you've effectively sold the NFT for that collateral price. So you should set the collateral, if in your most conservative case, at a price that you'd be happy to sell this NFT for. If you do that, you will literally never be unhappy using Gucci as a lender. Right? Because either you got another NFT back from the collection, so you still maintain your position, or you got paid a fee for doing that, right? A percentage, or you got back something, an amount of ADA you were happy to sell the NFT for. So you could kind of think of Gucci as a little bit like a DCA out tool, right? Like if you bought this NFT and you're saying, I would be happy to sell this in the future for 1,500 ADA. If you set your collateral at 1,500 ADA, even if the borrower doesn't come back, congratulations, you made a sale for 1,500 ADA, right? You're cool. The riskier way to use Gucci would be to say, I don't think let's say the NFT is at 1,000 ADA right now. If you set your collateral at 1,200, the borrower has an incentive to come back as long as the floor is under 1,200 ADA.
For sure. Yeah.
Because, right, like they borrowed your NFT, they sold it for, 975 ADA. And then, like, let's say the floor goes up to 1,100. If they'd want to not lose another 100 ADA, they could buy an NFT for 1,100 ADA, send it back to the collection, to the contract, and claim their 1,200 ADA back, right? And you would still have another NFT from the collection that's now worth 1,100 ADA and your fee. But how do I say this? If you do that, you can set your collateral at a level you don't think the floor will go to. But if you're wrong, you're prepared to be compensated that level.
Yeah.
Right. And because this is an open market of lending fees, of collateral, like we don't tell people what to set their collateral at or what they should charge or how long the loan should be. You're basically competing against all other lenders to offer the best rates, the best collateral terms. For borrowers, they don't want to tie up a lot of collateral, right? So borrowers are putting in their highest collateral offers, their highest interest rates, and lenders are putting in their lowest interest rate, their lowest collateral. And there's going to be this, I guess it goes to your point of what is the floor. There should be like a bid-ask spread
So you're kind of
of
creating
lending
an order
terms.
book, right?
Yeah, it's totally order book based. It's really dumb. There's no automated, AMM type system. And so it's just you look at this, you can sort the tables by ascending or descending
Mm.
for the various parameters. And this gets into my main point of why one of the things that I'm so frustrated with the NFT space about is the metrics that we use in the NFT space are so weird. It's like volume and floor price, right? These are the two things that probably floor price is more important than volume, but I don't know many other asset classes where volume is like of such keen interest. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, if you're trading Bitcoin or, oh, it's a low volume day, it's a high volume day, whatever. But, and you might look for volume as like a level of confirmation that this is actually significant price movement, but it's not like the primary thing anyone looks
No,
at, right?
no.
And so it's so weird to me because it's quite apparent that a lot of NFT projects are just paying the marketplaces, like they have a line item expense in their monthly budget. Send 30,000 ADA to JPEG Store in marketplace fees. JPEG Store is not complicit in this, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the system can be gamed, right? That if I buy and sell 1,000,000 ADA worth of NFTs to myself, I'll pay 2% of 1,000,000 ADA in fees to JPEG Store, and then my project will go to the top of the how do you say the rankings in the volume
Yeah.
chart, right? So a lot of projects are doing this. It's quite kind of, I think, scummy and misleading.
I've actually seen some info following wallets and addresses for a bunch of projects, and it's very
It's
plain to see what's
yeah,
going on. Yeah.
it's really widespread. And the unfortunate thing is like unsavvy people, again, who don't know better are swindled by this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like a double strike against this thing, right? Like anyone with a brain like knows what's going on and they don't get sucked in by it. But I think it's like they're preying on children almost, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we're all adults. I think most people in crypto tend to be adults, maybe some teenagers,
Hopefully.
whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually probably safer to be like betting your part-time job money as a teenager on NFTs than like
Yeah,
your
for
kid
sure.
your
Then if
kid's
you're
tuition
50,
or
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But that's that. And so, but yeah, the floor price, it's quite weird to me. It's actually, people talk about it like it's support, but the common meme is like the floor is resistance, right? Like if you think about a bid ask spread, like what's the highest price someone is willing to pay for an asset and what's the lowest price they're willing to sell it for, there's almost always a gap between these two things by definition.
Yeah.
Because if there isn't, those orders annihilate each other. They just get executed, right?
Yeah.
And that gets, becomes a transaction. But there's always a gap here. And people have in the NFT space for so long have been kind of brainwashed into thinking that the floor, like by intuition, the floor is something that's underneath you, that you stand on, that supports you. But the floor is actually just the lowest asking price of an asset in the NFT space. And it's actually, it should be called a ceiling, right? Because this is above you, and this is you. People need to buy these assets for the price to go up. It's literally resistance.
Yeah.
It's a sell wall.
It's actually not what if you wanted to sell an NFT, it's not actually the price that you could sell that NFT for that day.
Exactly.
You would have to drop it a lot lower. And I think that's the biggest issue that with the NFT space, and especially like I'm having when I'm sort of working around and investigating projects, is there's just no liquidity, or liquidity is just
Exactly.
very difficult, and especially with the models like JPG Store and pretty much all the other NFT marketplaces out there, the way they actually do the orders is based on the individual NFT, and there isn't actually a sort of a collection wide order book or sort of market maker that that is yeah.
Exactly. So that's why when we first announced, we were just doing borrowing and lending. But given the feedback that we got, we took a little bit longer and we added this feature that we're calling HODLs, which are essentially collection offers, or in traditional finance terms, limit buy orders.
Yeah.
Where they're, like if let's say the NFT, the current floor on JPEG is 1,000 ADA. What you can do is on Gucci, you can say, I'll pay 900 ADA for any NFT from this collection. And that is like actual support, right? Like if you have a bunch of these NFTs, it's like it's a sell it now button, just like you have buy it now on Amazon, right? Like this one click instant gratification thing. you don't have to worry when you see that HODL price. That the reason it's called HODL is like I imagine this like Braveheart scene of like HODL the line. Like I think this is the actual liquidity and like support,
Yeah.
right? It's like because the different some people get confused. Like, don't you have offers on JPEG Store? Yeah, but it's for one NFT.
Individual
So there's
NFTs, yeah. You're waiting
yeah,
on one person basically to
exactly.
respond to you, and that could be never.
Yeah, they I mean, a lot of us have multiple wallets for different NFTs. Like even if that person uses JPEG Store, they might not ever that might be their cold storage wallet. They might not ever see this offer because so it's like the set of people who have this NFT, which is one, and the set of people which have this NFT which use JPEG Store, so a further reduction. And then the set of people who have that NFT who use JPEG Store, who use JPEG Store with that wallet. It's
Yeah.
like an infinitesimal chance that somebody will see this offer. And so, of course, by fungibilizing this, making this generic offer, I want a space bud. I will pay 3,000 ADA for any space bud. I get a discount that I don't get to pick which one I get because, like if the current floor is, I don't know, 4,000 ADA for a space bud or something, 5,000 ADA, it's normal that if you get to pick what you want, you're going to pay a premium, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by genericizing it, somebody who just had a car accident needs to pay some repair bills or something, they might be willing to accept this discount, right? On if that's the current highest order for any space bud, they might appreciate the ability. Oh, I don't have to list this. Hope that it sells this week.
Yeah.
Try to get some liquidity out, right? Like so, it's really I think the larger goal of Gucci is to kind of bring some, you know, some more interesting opportunities to the NFT marketplace because
Mm-hmm.
I've been in crypto for almost a decade now. I got in like 2012, 2013. And I'll give NFTs a lot of credit, even though I'm quite pessimistic about them on Twitter and everything, is that they've brought a lot of attention and a lot of interest and a lot of mainstream adoption to the space.
Yeah.
And so I kind of think about Gucci as a way, it's almost like training wheels, right? Like if this is where the users are and this is what they're interested in, how do you provide value to these people who are interested in this space, right? And solve problems that they have. And so I perceive liquidity to be a major issue for most people in the NFT space. And so that's why the platform is literally named entrance and exit in Japanese, right? Almost literally. And
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you were talking about before as well, sort of the metrics for NFT collections. I actually think liquidity is probably one of the highest metrics that you want to look at when you're looking at an NFT project. How easily and quickly can I sell this NFT if I need to sell it? And I think that's
that's why people like
way more
volume, right?
important than volume, right? But like, yeah, volume
Yeah.
is like a proxy for that. When you can
It's a
actually
yeah.
see the orders right there and you can transact instantly and get that, then I think that's a more valuable, way more valuable metric.
So yeah, so the buy wall or the HODL line, as we're calling it, right, is essentially meant to be like this market depth indicator for skin in the game,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, oh, there's 20 orders that are willing to pick one of these up for 2,000 ADA. That's actual demand. And I don't think these wash traders are as likely to build up fake HODL walls as they are to wash trade between themselves. Because when you put down that HODL offer, you're essentially, putting money on the table that any of these bag holders can potentially use to exit.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing someone who's doing a pump and dump project wants to do is pay 2,000 ADA or something for an NFT they know is not going to, because they're the ones running it. They know it doesn't have any long-term prospects, right? And so that's where I would say that I think it's very unlikely that once Gucci or other platforms popularize this kind of system, I think there will be like a binary classification between projects that actually have demand for them and they will be able to maintain some buy support and everything else, which is just like, no, nobody is willing to pay any ADA to have like a standing offer, right? Or the bid ask spread will be so gargantuan that even a bull, someone who's interested in getting into that project would probably have to think twice, like, how come there's nobody willing to buy this thing
Yeah.
at any given price, right?
Yeah, it just gives way more information for investors. I think the this sort of HODL feature is incredibly innovative, and sort of what the NFT marketplace needs. I think lending and borrowing is also being done by a few other projects, such as Lending Pond and stuff like that. But none of them are actually trying to implement this order book. So going on from
one caveat there I'll just say is, because a lot of people, this comes up a lot, Lending Pond exists, but actually if you think about it, Lending Pond and Gucci are like inverse opposites. Because on Lending Pond, it's like you have an NFT, but you want ADA. So you lock your NFT in their smart contract. Somebody, like let's say you have a space bud worth 10,000 ADA. You might be able to get a 7,000 ADA loan for that space bud, right? And what happens then is that your space bud is a collateral that, okay, they send the smart contract 7,000 ADA, you get 7,000 ADA. You then have to make interest payments to the smart contract. And it's much more like a car loan if you think about it. Like I buy a car, I receive I don't get a loan. The bank doesn't send me a car. They send me 20,000 pounds. Right. And then I go buy a car with that 20,000 pounds. And if I don't make my 200 quid car payment, they repossess the car. So that's what Lending Pond does. We actually don't do that at all on our platform. On our platform, the ADA is what's locked in the smart contract.
And the NFT. Okay, so it's completely the opposite.
Yeah. So a lot. So that doesn't mean Lending Pond isn't good and an interesting platform. It's just like, it's totally the inverse, right? Like it's like you literally get, the bank sends you a car, and if you don't return the car, they take the money that you deposited with them. That's what, right, it would be if it was if Gucci was in the car lending business, right? Like, and you have to give me back another Honda Civic, right? If I'm the bank, I give you a Honda Civic, you have to give me back another Honda Civic. It doesn't have to be the one I sent you, but that's it. So yeah, I just had to jump in because that comes up a lot.
Worries,
and
no worries, yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, so I mean, there's been a lot of talk about sort of the future for NFTs. I mean, currently, really, they are just pixels on a screen. However, there's incredibly sort of broad opportunities for the way they can be used in the future. Where do you think NFTs are going and headed?
Well, yeah. So I think they're even less than JPEGs or pixels on a screen. They're actually just text that links to a file server someplace with pixels on a screen.
A lot of people actually don't know that. They actually think it's the extra jet, but it's not. It's just a bit of text.
It's not. So it's, the way I describe it is like, you're not buying an NFT is not a house. It's the land record that says you own that house over there, right? And that's a useful thing. Land records are a useful thing in any country that you go to. There's probably a land registry that records buys and sales of property. But it's interesting because one of the things people are doing with Gucci is like, I don't know, this project Book.io? They have this like Gutenberg Bible, which gives you discounts on minting any other NFT. So what you can actually do on Gucci is you can borrow one of those Bibles, you can pay the lender the fee, right? And then you can actually use that NFT because it's in your wallet. It's physically in your wallet. It's not locked in the smart contract to go and mint some other things with some, I don't know what the discount is, but this is an example. I don't know if you know Dead Pixels or any of these like metaverse games. Once one of these things actually has like an actual game, imagine you can now borrow that asset on Gucci. It'd be kind of like renting it from Blockbuster. So rather than having to pay 2,000 ADA for one of these NFTs, you could use Gucci to try before you buy. You're going to be out 20 to 50 ADA paying the platform fees, but you can actually, dip your toe in the water because you're physically taking possession of the NFT, even though you don't technically own it, because you have to pay it back or lose your ADA, in which case you've now bought it. But it's a really interesting use case that you can basically, it's like this lending library thing where I believe blockchains fundamentally are about incentivizing correct behavior so that if you don't behave correctly, like there's no risk to the other party. There's no counterparty risk involved. And so this allows you to somewhat risklessly lend out your assets to other people to use them and to be paid for it. And primarily the use case that we designed it for was for shorting. But actually you don't have to sell the NFT, right? Like if you go to Gucci.io and you actually borrow the thing, there's no short button anywhere on the site, right? Like it's like you borrow an NFT, you sell it, you wait for the price to go down, you rebuy it, and you repay your loan. There's like 4 actions there, right? But what's nice about that is you actually don't even have to sell it. You can just borrow it, hold it, use it for whatever utility it has, and then return it at the end of the 30-day or 20-day or 10-day loan, whatever it was you know that contract was parameterized for. So for it's, to me, this is like I'm calling it like NFT-fi, right? Like there are things that make sense to do with an NFT token that don't make sense to do with a fungible token. Right? Like all I guess if you had a governance token, you could borrow a lot of them. You could, use it to make a vote, and then you could return it, right? If you wanted to do that. So you could sell your voting rights. But, I think as these NFTs start to have more utility, the use cases for borrowing, and not the lending bond variety where the NFT, if you put your NFT in that smart contract, it's like it's ineligible for airdrops essentially, right? Because it's not in your wallet. It's ineligible for, it takes it out of like circulation. That's another thing people can do. If there's an airdrop coming up and you don't want to receive the airdrop, right? You can rent out your NFT. It can go into someone else's wallet. They will get the snapshot and they will receive the airdropped NFT, right? Like these are all kinds of things that are possible because we don't really care what you do with it when you borrow it. That's on you. But anything that requires the token to have access to or to be eligible for is enabled for free by Gucci. Not free. You're paying for the aid of it, but like we don't have to do anything in our tech stack for you to be eligible for that because it's all at the base level of the ledger. No, it's quite interesting.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So I'd like to ask this to sort of all the projects that I talked to. What's building on Cardano like now, and what's one thing that needs to be improved?
There's a lot of voodoo involved. Our smart contracts actually only took us like a week or 2 to write because my co-founder and I, like, we both got into Cardano because we liked Haskell. And my stake pool, I don't know if you know, is named Monad. Monads are this like complex thing that you have to deal with in Haskell.
Still trying to get my head around monads. It's taking a while.
They're burritos, they're wrappers, they're context, whatever. It's like and so I thought, sidebar, that like, oh, everyone will love a stake pool called Monad because like if you're in Haskell, you have to deal with this thing, right? And so I think it's quite funny that it shows my lack of marketing prowess that anyone who knows what a monad is can probably run their own stake pool, right? And so like this is like the dumbest idea ever. But
worth a try.
Yeah. So that is to say that when it comes to developing on Cardano, like there is a lot of like pixie dust and little magic to make your stuff work. That's a little bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. I think things are getting better, and it's getting less painful to use. But that's part of what we did. I think it's actually quite atypical. We've open sourced our smart contracts because we think that more than being Gucci, like we are in the Cardano space. And we hope that other people can kind of look at what we've done and learn from it or improve it or whatever, right? Like, and I think given the paucity of developers that are able to do Cardano development, like I really don't want to be reinventing the wheel all the time, right? Like, and so I feel that like we in the Cardano community should put more pressure on services to open source their contracts. And not just, I'm sorry to say, but like I don't really buy the whole audit thing, right? Like you pay somebody 50,000 to 100,000 euros or whatever, and then they audit your thing. It's a useful thing to go through, but it's like that's not a substitute for open source software. And and people, should really question. I'm not saying it will always come out in favor of the open source product or service, but like I don't see how Cardano succeeds long term if everyone is like holding their cards so close to their chest and everyone is struggling to develop on Cardano and no one is like sharing these insights with each other. Like to me, if that's how we play, we've already lost.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're going to lose to one of these chains that's easier to develop for. And so I think a little bit people need to vote with their wallets and support. If there's two competing services and one is audited and closed source and the other one is open source, I'd say you have a strong incentive to help out the one, to vote with your wallet and maybe use that one so that they can kind of sustain themselves and whatever. Because it's going to be quite bearish, I think, for Cardano if people don't embrace open source solutions.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And I think open source is sort of one of the biggest ethos that Cardano is actually built upon. So it
Yeah.
would be nice to see that sort of reciprocated by the community and the companies.
And
Yeah.
I wasn't aware, I'll just quickly say, I wasn't aware of this, but this is something that like other communities are kind of beating us up on about. Like it's almost standard in most blockchains that you do open source stuff. But
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff as I've started to dabble in Ergo more. It's kind of a regular jab from the Ergo guys, like, oh yeah, another Cardano not open source solution, right? Like we are kind of normalized. I understand it from a practical perspective, like you worked on this thing for 6 months or a year, you're worried that someone will just copy paste it. But I actually don't think, I think most people who are capable of developing on Cardano have like they're, if you're good enough to make something on Cardano, you're probably like also going to be doing your own thing, right? So there might be pieces that you look at and that you learn from, but I don't think there's many copy paste, substitutions that are I just don't see that really working on Cardano right now with as hard as it is to develop.
Yeah, I can see it from the project's perspectives of it's so hard to develop on Cardano that you've put so much time and effort that you don't want to just sort of give it away all for free. But at the end of the day, I think it's sort of like the way Elon Musk and Tesla and all these other sort of companies, big companies that work that iterate really fast, is they put everything open source, and if someone tries to compete with them, they just have to iterate faster. So actually, it pushes
Yeah,
you to develop and make changes to your software and doesn't actually cause stagnation. So yeah, I
exactly.
completely agree with that. Yeah,
And
so
and we didn't
yeah.
open source the back end and the front end. It's just the smart
Mm-hmm.
contracts, which I think are very important that anyone has, like it's the core piece that's running on Cardano, right? And so that is like we still have some kind of advantage because if you take our smart contracts, you're still gonna have to build a back end, still gonna have to build a front end and all this kind of thing. But
Which
at
is
least the
actually
thing,
like a
yeah.
large part of, like, probably more than just developing the smart contracts. Takes way
Yeah,
more time.
exactly. Exactly. So there's still some defensible position. If someone, from the day we open sourced, if someone looked at that and was like, I'm going to build Gucci, but, however, with my tweak on it, we're still like, we've got like half a year head start on them. So I think it's fine. If we've lost by then, that's on us, right?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, okay. So let's close out with one last question. I think you alluded to part of the answer before when you talked about Haskell. Why Cardano?
Yeah, I got into crypto in 2013-ish, so it was end of 2012 when I think it was going through $100. I put like $5,000 into GPUs to mine Litecoin to instantly sell to Bitcoin, and I sold all of that a year or two later when FPGAs and ASICs were coming online, which are these like dedicated, heat producing devices that can
Basic,
only
yeah,
mine Bitcoin,
yeah.
right? And I'm
And
like, this is not going to be
China's going to take
decentralized.
over. Yeah,
Yeah,
completely.
it was China. I thought it would be Iceland or places with like cold, cheap geothermal electricity that they could just use the cold air to cool the machines, right? But it's like it's kind of a cliche, but I'm in it for the tech. Not even in it for the tech. I'm in it for the decentralization. And so I basically noped out of crypto in like 2014 or 2015. And then I was working on my job and my career. And I was always interested in learning Haskell because I thought, blockchains are immutable, decentralized ledgers. immutability is the key word there. And functional programming, Haskell, is all about pure functions, which, like, if you say x is equal to 3, like some variable is equal to something, you can't change it to say x is now 5. And that it just seemed to make sense to me that, like, UTXOs of Bitcoin and purely functional programming were like a very nice matching paradigm. And so I was on the Haskell subreddit, trying to learn Haskell, dealing with functors and applicatives and monads and all this stuff.
All good
And
fun.
around 2018, 2019, I started to see Cardano come up. And, I think back when I left Bitcoin, that was when, like, colored coins were being talked about, and, like, proof of stake was an idea on Bitcoin Talk. And we all thought, like, proof of stake would arrive in like a year or two, right? But basically, I was learning Haskell because I thought, like, there should be a proof of stake, purely functional blockchain. And then when I started to look into Cardano, first I was like, oh shit, somebody beat me to it. But realistically, like, IOG does such a better job than anything I could have done with, like, my friend or something, right? That it was like, after I had that realization and I looked into it, I was like, oh, this is actually a lot better than what I could have done. So then it became the question, now that someone else has developed this for me, what can I build on it? Like, I can move on to the next thing, which is, like, actually developing solutions on a purely functional, proof of stake network. And so that's to answer your question. Proof of stake, I think, is inherently superior to proof of work because of the the ability to be decentralized. And two, I think that Haskell and purely functional programming is like such a better paradigm to work in. So it's obviously Cardano for me.